Hello everyone, I'm Vivi and welcome to a Jack and Daxter video. This time, I'd like to talk about the story of Ashelin Praxis. Ashelin Praxis was born in Haven City, pretty much always under the rulership of her father, Baron Praxis. We can tell Ashelin grew up strictly following her father's evil ways of rulership. In this scene where Kira seems to really dislike Ashelin due to her status, being the daughter of the Baron and commander of the Krimzon Guard, well, she says, "I'm not like my father."
Everyone knows who she is.
And Kira's,
A friend. A very good friend.
I'm not my father, you know. Ever since I was a little girl, I've looked down at the city streets from that ridiculous palace and imagined a better place.
Ever since she was a little girl, she looked down at the city streets from that ridiculous palace. The tone she sets off in this scene, she grew up with her father, and it seems like she always followed all of his orders while growing up, and eventually she became captain of the Krimzon Guard. But a time came where she started to feel like her father was really thinking only for himself, being selfish, thinking that whatever he was doing was always the right way. His evil ways. Speaking of evil ways, in fact, Torn, who's second in command of the Underground, during that time, in the past, he quit the Krimzon Guard because of Baron's evil ways. Torn had pretty much grown a conscience, just like Ashelin. It is unknown what really convinced Ashelin to join the Underground as a spy. If you're joining a rebel group to basically dethrone your father, that tells us that she was struggling to choose between respecting her father or both at the same time. Like, you start wondering, okay, it has to be one or the other. Why is she tackling both? Betraying her father behind his back and still, respecting him. It's likely she was agreeing with Torn when it came to the political side of things. It was always unknown what exactly convinced her to join Torn in the Underground. And why Torn, out of all people? Well, he was part of the Krimzon Guard, so Ashelin naturally would know who Torn is, and perhaps trust him enough to become a spy for the group. According to Jack 2's Bible, which is a collector's edition of Jack 2 released by Limited Run Games a while back, well, it does state a bit more information regarding her connection to Torn. Ashelin, the daughter of Baron Praxis, Ashelin forsook her privileged start and fought her way up through the ranks to become a commander in the Krimzon Guard. Her fiery personality matches her bright ruby hair, while drop-dead looks, cunning brains, and a lethal aim combine to make Ashelin a deliciously deadly triple threat. Still loyal to her father, she has begun to doubt his tactics of late, and a highly secretive past with Torn yields a friendship which provides the Underground with vital information. In the end, Ashelin will be forced to make a choice as she takes a bold stand to save the city. Well, according to that description, she had some sort of friendship with Torn, enough to convince her to be part of the Underground. Ashelin felt like the type of character that refused to let go of her pride. Yeah, she low-key dislikes her father's ways, but she was the leader, commander of the Krimzon Guard. That was a big status for her. She was proud of that, while also trying to admit that she's not like her father. If she really wanted to dethrone her father completely, she would have quit the Krimzon Guard ASAP, but she didn't. Part of her didn't want to let go of that quote-unquote privilege. Jack first meets Ashelin after Torn tells us that his friend was on patrol and never came back. He was starting to get worried. Once they arrive there, she tells Jack to tell Torn that her father is planning something bad. Already you can tell she's on the fence between what's right and wrong. Like, should I betray my father while still working for him? Going off what I said before, her pride, her being proud of having this big status, the Krimzon Guard. If she were to betray her father, maybe deep down she was scared that she would lose that position, despite disliking her father's ways. You can tell she's struggling to figure out what's the best approach. She gives you her access card to the bazaar to talk to Onin afterwards. Later throughout the game, Ashelin starts having this fondness for Jack.
Hey, I watched your race today. You were pretty amazing out there.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for helping out with that tanker, Jack. You saved a lot of lives.
Cause before you were like, okay, she was being really careful not to bring down or affect her, strong status. Here, she feels grateful for him, helping save lives, back when that metalhead invaded in that tank vehicle. She even goes to lengths to physically touch Jack. Physical contact can be a sign of attraction. If someone tries to purposely come closer to you, lean in, touch you by the hand, touch your shoulder, whatever it is, it can be attraction. Jack and Daxter later wonder how Baron Praxis was hot on their tail when finding the Precursor Stone. Well, that was because Baron had threatened to kill his own daughter, apparently, after finding out that she was working as a spy for the Underground. As for how he found out, that's a complete mystery. I'd like to believe word got out, because of maybe a Krimzon Guard. Remember, let's not forget the scene where Ashlin, I guess, casually tells Jack not to meddle with Krimzon Guard business. I mean, Jack, who was part of the Dark Warrior program and basically escaped, is now roaming the streets. Ashlin, being the commander of the Krimzon Guard, right in front of Jack, simply tells him, don't get involved.
How's it riding in the hood, Red?
Get out of the area. This is Krimzon Guard business.
Right next to him, you have a Krimzon Guard. So it is likely word got out by a certain member of the Krimzon Guard. At least, that's my guess. So knowing that a Krimzon Guard saw Ashlin talk to Jack in a neutral tone, and by neutral I mean she didn't really threaten Jack in this scene. So naturally, one of the guards was probably wondering, okay, this dude was part of the Dark Warrior program, who's basically now hated by Baron. Why is this woman, Ashlin, not doing anything about it, and simply telling him to not meddle? So yeah, what happened? Torn was manipulated into revealing the location of the Precursor Stone. If not, he would kill his own daughter, apparently. So I'd like to ask you a question. How do you think Baron found out about Ashlin being a spy for the Underground? Leave your thoughts in the comments. But then you also wonder, would Baron really kill his own daughter? From what we know, he ultimately did not, because the next time we meet up with her, she still seems to work closely with her father. She's still within the palace. The way she lashes out on Jack here, that tells me the Baron got to her. So two scenarios. Ashlin, when interrogated by her father, finding out she's a spy, she could have invented an excuse. So he spared her. Or he was just messing with Torn straight up, even if he knew that she was a spy, with no intent on killing her. Why? Because she's his daughter. However, when Baron says this city is mine, these lives are mine, and survival is all that matters by whatever means, well, you really gotta wonder, someone with that kind of attitude would perhaps kill their own daughter.
All the heroes died long ago. Only survival remains, by whatever means. This city is mine. These lives are mine. This war is mine.
That's another interesting question. Knowing Baron's attitude when it comes to politics, how he handles things, would he really kill his own daughter, his own flesh and blood? Later, Ven tells Ashlin that yes, piercing the stone will destroy everything. And naturally, she's back on Jack's side, because she's ultimately worried and basically traumatized. Why? Because her father was planning to use the stone, using a piercer bomb. Now, Baron had no idea that the stone would cause so much power, so much destruction. But when Ashlin found out about it through Ven, she naturally got really worried. After Baron's death, Ashlin becomes the new governor of the city and appoints Torn as commander of the new Krimzon Guard. She wants him at Daxter's party, so they're basically in a relationship, kinda? In Jack 3, we find out that the new Krimzon Guard turned into the Freedom League. We got our first look at them when Jack is banished to the Wastelands after, the Grand Council, basically Vigor, believed that the metalheads attacking again was due to the connection Jack had with crew in the past. So with that, he decided Jack would get banished. Ashlin was completely against it. Although she was governor of the city, her vote was completely overrun by the council. She did, however, make sure that Jack would survive. She gives him some sort of beacon, hoping that a certain someone would find him. That someone turned out to be Damus. How did she even find a beacon that Damus would be able to identify, find? Well, she was living in the palace as a kid, and Damus was overthrown by Baron Praxis a while back, believing that he wasn't fit to be a leader. So whatever happened, Ashlin got her hands on a beacon. Just a wild guess to throw out there. Maybe when he was overthrown, when he was banished, something fell out of his pocket and Ashlin, being a kid, finds it, a new shiny toy for her. The point I'm trying to make is, she very likely remembered who Damus was. At least in terms of status, someone who used to work alongside the Baron, her father. So she did remember the Wastelands, so she thought that Damus would find Jack. However, I don't believe she knew that Kid Jack was actually Jack. Older Jack. It's possible she had no idea that Damus had a kid. Okay, maybe she knew of the kid losing his father. When the Baron did that, the kid being abandoned, Baron could have filled young Ashlin's mind with, over-glorified words. Something like, oh, it's gonna be okay, it's fine. She was just a child, innocent. She didn't really understand what was going on. When war yet again waged in Haven City, due to the remaining metalheads and, the whole thing with Errol, the Dark Makers, Ashlin took it upon herself to try and convince Jack to come back, because the city needs him. She needs him. They were losing the fight. She said that Vigor was drunk with power. So Jack ultimately refused because he had a grudge after what happened to him. Ashlin goes on to say, so the hero I knew died in the desert. She's trying to use her words of persuasion. In the end, Jack does come back to Haven. Basically, Pecker played a role in that, stating that the catacombs in Haven City held the key to the planet's survival. In Jack 3, Ashlin was pretty much off-screen giving our duo some missions. After defeating Errol, these two share a kiss off-screen, and thus began the "What about Kira?" Kira was thrown on the back burner in Jack 3, unfortunately. We barely saw her. Something we could never wrap our heads around? Did Ashlin really love Jack? Or was it simple flirtation or infatuation? From the looks of things, in Jack X Combat Racing, which takes place a year after the events of Jack 3, Torn and Ashlin, they are dating obviously. Ashlin was part of the crew in Jack X, visiting Cross City to read Crew's will after his death. Ashlin was forced to participate because the wine was poisoned. Everyone drank that wine. The only way to survive was to win the races for the antidote. Out of everyone, Ashlin had the biggest anger or resentfulness towards Crew's daughter, Rain. While her gut was right, Rain was in on the whole thing, to purposely poison the gang, basically forcing them to win the races, to, in the end, overrun the city instead of her father. That was her goal, ultimate goal in the end. The biggest can of worms for last. Okay, let's rewind to Jack 3's ending. Ooh boy. Ashlin reacts to finding out that Jack is called Mar.
That you can call me by my first name, by what my father called me, Mar.
Wait, Jack is Mar? The Mar?
Wait, the Mar? Let's go back to what I said earlier. It's likely Ashlin knew of Damus's kid. She probably knew that the kid was named Mar. That's the most simple approach to this scene without breaking our heads. She had no idea that the kid Mar would grow up to be Jack she first met in Jack 2. Or the exhausted topic of whether or not Jack is the Mar, the ruler of Haven City. Look, unless Jack time traveled again to the past to become Mar and grow up basically to build a city, and then come back young again, using the Precursor's powers, assuming they have the power to do so, Naughty Dog always left this question up in the air. I personally feel like it wasn't their intention to make the answer look obvious to us. It's like they left that up in the air because they didn't know what to do with it. That's what it looks like to me. But heck, in the past I did talk about the Mar. It is a fun theory, but a bit, a theory which has outrun its course. Hey, maybe I said some different things in my old Mar video, but now it feels like Okay, we really don't have an answer. Naughty Dog's never gonna answer the question, so let's just let it be. If ever a new passionate team is up for handling the Jak and Daxter IP, and decide to work with the whole is Jak the Mar theory, travel to the past and all that, I'd be super up for that. Hey, I mean, a dude can dream. So with that being said, guys, this is it for the video. If you have questions, your own theory surrounding the story of Ashelin Praxis, go ahead and leave anything you want, okay? So as usual, I've been Vivi, and thank you so much for watching.